Hey guys, haven't made a video in a while. I shared that I was working on this cat going in the Ford LTL project and had a fair bit of interest there on the LTL page, so I figured, hey, why not make a video? So this is a 5EK 3406. It was originally a low horsepower 375 horse unit, which would have come with aluminum pistons. Evidently, it's been rebuilt because once we got the pan off, looked up in there, it does have the two-piece steel aluminum pistons, which does look like this style right here. So, naturally, we went ahead and my best friend Kevin, his guys, they pulled the 375 cam and the 375 injectors, and we put the Marine 800 cam and 55 injectors, which those flow about 30% more than a 550 injector. So this exact setup of a 14.6 liter, and I'm gonna put an S480 charger on it that I have at home. So this setup with the S480 and these injectors and this cam, depending on the tune, basically run that between 750 and 950 horse. Now this is the weaker block, the non-sculpted, not the strong block. And the same goes with the cam. A lot of people will tell you that these engines have the weak cam and the weak block, and they're probably right. But I'm counting on not running this thing enough to really make it matter. And hey, if it breaks a block, we'll go to an ACER block. So this is the difference here. You can see what a sculpted one looks like. They're actually a lighter block, but they're stronger than the older style. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to change the oil cooler and the water pump while it's here and easy, and the thermostats. So I've been fighting getting the thermostat housing off. So that's now off, and I only broke a couple bolts along the way. I'm going to have to drill out. But now the thermostat housing's off, I'm going to work on finishing pulling the manifold off because this is going in the Ford actually leans it in the engine. That's why it's got this goofy looking bell housing on it. So because of that, come on camera. All right, I'm using this gimbal thing trying to steady myself a bit. So you can see how those motor mounts are, how it's leaning. And that's how Ford did it like that, so that the driver has a little more leg room. And the Cummins was in there the same way. But basically you have this special bell housing, and then you have a motor mount up front that leans, which we can't find. So we're probably gonna be making that once it's in the truck. It's not gonna be a big deal. And then the fan hub, it's actually offset this way because the motor's leaning over here. I don't know, probably 10 degrees or so. So the fan has to move over a few inches basically to stay centered in the truck, and that's over in the other shop. And the engine that these parts came off of, out of an L9000 Ford, it had serpentine belt set up where this motor had all V-belts. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking that hub apart from that fan clutch and using the V-belt setup from this engine and putting it on that offset hub, because this was in a Freightliner FLD. So it already had the generator or the alternator and the air conditioner compressor, all that stuff sits up top there. And I don't have any problem with that. It's basically, you have your alternator here and the AC compressors right there. And it all works. So that's all going to go back on. And I just think it's easier just to keep that all V-belt the way it was. So my plan for this morning is go ahead, get the water pump out, oil cooler off, exhaust manifold off. And then I'm going to keep cleaning this as best I can. I can't go outside and pressure wash, partly because it is 1 degree out right now. I think it was -2 this morning when I woke up. And this engine's pretty open. We don't have an oil pan and all that stuff on it yet. But I'm just going to basically clean it up, use one of those blowgun things with cleaning fluid. This guy here. Use that thing there and spray cleaning fluid on it and just keep scraping a little better. I'm not looking for museum quality, but make it look a little better than it is. Well, I got the oil cooler, water pump, exhaust manifold all off. Got some old school cleaning fluid in one of these guns.
working on cleaning everything up. Get ready for painting.
Well, it's been a productive Saturday. New oil cooler, water pump are in. I painted it before they went on and then basically painted again. This paint job is nothing to write home about, but it's not bad. It looks better than it did, I think. So I went ahead and put the ECM back on. Fuel filters, changed out the filters themselves, bolted that other housing back on, put the starter back on. Probably this inlet's going to change. I have a Ford piece that basically it sticks out more because this engine's going to be leaning that way a little bit. But that's pretty well it. Tomorrow I'm going to clean up this disaster area and take this over to the main shop. I think I'm going to try to get the transmission bolted up to it. And basically I can take the valve covers off. I'm gonna sandblast them, paint them black. So that, I got some broken exhaust studs yet. It's 3 I gotta get out, so I think I'm just gonna weld a nut. Got that. I broke those 2 today. This one was already broken. So I get that, clean up that side of the head. Thermostat housing still has to go back on up there. New thermostat, and that'll be it. So when you change the oil cooler, you can basically, I took this all apart. I took this back piece off. There's an O-ring seal in here, and then there's like a double piece here. There's an O-ring here and here, and then you have bolts. There's a bolt here and one back there behind. There's 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here. Hold on to the oil filter base. This is filtered oil going through the cooler and into the engine. So the main thing is when you have that off, you gotta keep rags in those holes and be very careful just to keep dirt out of there. Otherwise you're gonna be sending that to your bearings. But that's the gist of it. The turbo drain was coming here. This is the turbo pressure, which is just a JIC, I think -8, I'm not 100% sure. But they were hard lines. So going to the 480 and having the turbo in a different spot, I'm sure the pressure side will go to something flexible. And the drain, I think we may actually have some parts in the other shop from the Ford takeout to use for that. But we'll try to see what we can figure out on that tomorrow. Well, Kevin's got this super cool little wheel abrader. That'll be awesome for blasting the valve covers, but went to use it and it wouldn't work, so I pulled the covers off and Well, the one sprocket fell off and laying down here that is for driving the drum, turning that drum around. So see if I can get that back on. See if we can get this bad girl working. Nothing to it. Slip that sprocket back on. We're up and going. That's what turns the whole drum in the blaster. So after a little while, parts turning around in here like this. Those beaters are just throwing the steel shot at it. Doesn't use compressed air, it just hammers that up there. And that's what you end up with. So those are the aluminum parts of the thermostat housing. It does a pretty good job. I mean, it's not the most perfect job in the world, but you didn't have to do anything but turn it on and walk away. I finally got these broken studs out. Ended up that they're so hard from all the heat cycles out here that I took a die grinder, started back inside the stud, then drilled them, basically to get through that really hard layer. I drilled all the way through the stud until you basically felt that, felt the gap between the stud and the head. Drilled that, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch drill or so, and then took the MIG welder, filled the hole back out. That way that weld cools and kind of shrinks, pulls in on the stud, makes the diameter slightly smaller. Just keep welding that out a little bit, and I put a nut on that little nub, weld inside the nut, and then just keep, take a wrench and work it once it cools down. Either, 1 or 2 times you have to do that. Basically, like the one, I think it came right out. The other one, I think this one, I broke the nut off, beat on it with a hammer some more, just trying to loosen that stud up, weld another nut on, and got it to come. So, wasn't too bad. Tonight what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pop these valve covers off, throw them in the parts washer, get the oil out of the inside, and then throw them in the wheel abrader to blast them. And go ahead and hit them with a coat of black. I'm gonna clean all this up. I gotta drive the sleeves in for the exhaust. I got new gaskets. This guy here is for the thermostat housing. The other gasket for the thermostat housing. We can get all that on. Got a new piece of water hose here between the thermostat housing and the water pump for the little bypass thing. And get that all together. Hopefully get the manifold on and get all that stuff done tonight. And I also have there's a bell housing. This is a Halo type transmission. I had to get a new bell housing, didn't have the right one. So I got a gasket sitting there for that. And the bell housing, get them on this. This is a 16909A convertible transmission. It's already been converted to a 13 speed. Supposedly they're the same as an 18 speed. So I'm gonna put the 18 speed shifter on it and replumb it as a 3 hose instead of 4 hose, which basically just means that you eliminate this connection here. This can be a T or just plug that. And we'll run it as an 18 speed and see if it grenades. So these are the PAI exhaust gasket kits. Okay, there. They come with the sleeve, and it has a steel flange in the middle and then a gasket on each side. It's all riveted together. And some of the holes it's tighter in. This number 6, it's pretty loose, but it really matters. Basically, there's a step down there in the head. Can't really see it. It's a Milwaukee light. There's a step down there in the head, and it kind of lines the ID up of that tube with that step. Keeps the heat out of the head. The stock ones are just like a 2-piece. There's a sleeve that goes in there and the gasket goes around it. So you can see how thick that gasket ends up when it's in there. It's supposed to be a better deal. I was happy you can still find these motor mounts, no problem. I got them from anythingtruck.com. I think they work on a few different internationals, Fords and everything, but it even looks a little better than that one. I gotta hammer them on, they're a little tight. I got the transmission on. Everything's about ready to go here. I need to put grease fittings in. On each side there, yep. And I need to find a yoke. The other one was a 10 spline, and this transmission's the fine spline. Whoops. So just about to set it down so I can trade it off to the overhead crane. The main reason I'm doing this is that jib pole, you can't pick it on the end. This forklift will tip over. The forks aren't long enough to reach past the bumper and everything. And if you do it where it is, then the jib pole will go through the windshield. So with it being 5 degrees outside right now, I'm not getting the big 30,000 pound forklift running. This is the solution. Since this lifted so well, I'm just going to keep that chain exactly where it was on this upper shackle. I'm going to pick that with the crane from that point. Without changing that chain. Now I'm gonna cage the brakes on the truck and get back there with the forklift and just roll the truck into the engine.
Let's go forward as much as we can.
That's about all the down we can do right now.
Get her as far as we can get her.
At some point, that's further than I thought it would go. I say we may have to catch it with a transmission jack or something. Although we're like 40 feet in the air. That sucks because that chain's like too long. It's like we need to let it dip back. Or the chain's too short. Hold on a second, Sean. I think if I get this off. I can do a little more now. Well, we might be able to drop it down.
Yeah, we can come down a couple inches. We'll just have to keep
From the whole tilt problem. This is where we're gonna run into that issue.
You can put the jack up there and pick it up.
I think we're gonna have to put the jack under and roll it, like, because that motor mount right now is below the peg because of this whole turning it sideways issue.
well, what we could do is
Take that motor mount off.
we could, or hook to this side of the block up to the chain fall or the,
Yeah.
and
It looks like a good place for lunch to me.
yeah, I think you're right. We're almost there now.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was,
If we're gone and it falls, you can't go for it.
I mean, it'll be wedged in there and it'll be fun to get back out.
Might just put itself in place.
I'll put it right back.
I think that you could use this and do one rubber
And two rubbers.
and two rubbers,
You might be right.
and it'll just save you.
It's not like it's doing anything.
No, it's just
Yeah.
no. And you get some rubber in there for isolate. That one doesn't work either.
No, I'm just, oh, there we go.
Oh.
I just took the top handle off so I can actually.
Get some stroke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Up. Okay, we gotta pick her up. We're into the gear. Going up.
Okay.
Oh, that's Oakland innings.
You want me to keep coming up or?
Yeah, wouldn't hurt.
It looks like the back is real towards the driver's side.
Give her another pump. That's.
Try to move the truck forward a little.
Well, it's against the firewall.
Yeah, we can't.
Okay, then keep going down.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Hold it.
It started taking a little weight on something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the front motor mount right now.
Oh, you know what? It's on this, the passenger side is doing something odd. Hold on, let me get over there and see. Yeah.
Looks like we're almost gonna have to like let all the pressure off or something, sort of walk it back.
It's so close.
Got a half inch. If that.
Oh, you know what? No, actually, I don't know what. It's like, it looks like it'll go down to me right now.
Well, it would, but I think we're also hitting the firewall.
The oil cooler is into the frame rail.
Uh-oh. What's it, like you can't, what would happen if you would just go down right now?
We need to pry that over.
Well, we're in. Back motor mounts are all tightened down. And I'm gonna haul it home. Still don't have the front motor mount. Ended up finding that on Vanderhags, had the right one, so it's not worth screwing with making one. shelled out the radiator just to see what we have left. I think I may convert this radiator and then buy the intercooler that goes in front of it for the later LTLs. I think it might work. I'm gonna do a little more investigating. I think I might just have to kind of notch the tank out and run through it. But there'll be some figure in there. Everything's going pretty smoothly, just taking some time. I pulled the valve covers off, cleaned them up, painted them. I got a little more, some things I didn't like. I started needle scaling. I need to do a little more cleanup. This accessory drive looks pretty bad. Probably pull it back off, but once I get home, the hood's gonna come back off. The little radiator shell and everything's gonna come back off. But as you can see going in, it was pretty challenging. Really wouldn't have happened without this crane and then the forklift to help lean it. The forklift was hooked to the inlet pipe there to roll it. Just put a strap right around this guy and picked on to get it to lean. Ended up having a floor jack under the transmission to hold up on the back there. And that worked. We're in here obviously. But I'll just jack up the front a little bit, pull that front motor mount off. It's just sitting on the cross member right now, but it'll ride. The back's all, its clamshells are around those little posts. It's all bolted in. Put a new breather hose on it, cleaned the breather, painted it. I did the valve covers. Oil pan's all on and done. I ended up running the Freightliner pan, but flipped back to a rear sump. Had to use a longer pickup tube to make it a rear sump, obviously, and then I moved the dipstick back one of the slots on the other side. You can push those little rubber plugs out and move the dipstick and replace the rubber plug where the dipstick used to be, because it was running this oil pan, but as a front sump in the Freightliner. So now the dipstick's back here. I didn't bolt it to the block yet. It's just kind of shoved down in there, but I'm not sure if I'm going to cut it back a little bit. I'm just a little concerned with what the water and everything coming off the front tire is going to do to it. It may be just fine. Maybe just need inked forward a little so that the water wouldn't work its way up in there. But either way, just because of the lean, I'm sure I'm going to have to remark that dipstick. Just put the 10 gallons in, remark the full. But yeah, I'm happy with how this project's going. I don't have the right yoke for the transmission, so the drive shaft's not hooked up yet either. So I just backed off the brake adjusters so I could, so we could roll it. That's how we were rolling it, putting the engine in. But we're gonna winch it on the low boy and haul her home.